Another episode in the Leading Safely podcast. I'm so sorry for the delay in getting this to air. I have a whole heap of things going on at the moment and I'm trying to work through it all without drowning. I'm hoping I'll be able to take a breath of fresh air sometime soon though, so stay tuned. Today I have another guest episode for you from my time in the States. This chat is an interesting one. Like me, my special guest was a first-timer at the Community of Human and Organisational Learning Conference. He had spent 21 years in various roles in the US Army and then slightly pivoted his career to now work at a national laboratory in the human and organisational performance field. His name is Ken Madson, and meeting Ken amongst all other awesome guests was genuinely a highlight of my time at the conference. He is intense and direct, which did take a while to get used to. I do want to provide you also with a little bit of background regarding the topic you're going to hear Ken speak about, which is bias, specifically with incident investigations. Prior to what you will hear in the recording, Ken and I had an open, honest, raw, and emotional discussion about an experience he had had whilst in the Army that had a very deep impact on him. Ken knows firsthand what it is like to witness an incident involving someone close. I am unable to provide you with all of those details. However, please believe me when I tell you that I felt extremely privileged and honoured that he was able to be vulnerable with me and trust me enough to share his learning from this deeply traumatic experience. So here it is, my intense and impactful chat with my awesome new friend, Ken. So thanks for joining me on the Leading Safely podcast, Ken.
Happy to be here.
That's good. So as you know, I ask all my special guests for health and safety related questions. The first question is, what do you think makes an effective leader when it comes to health and safety?
I think in any industry, it's got to be curiosity and humility.
Okay.
One, you have to be curious to see what the new is. Every time there's an event, it's never going to be exactly like another.
Okay.
Being curious allows you to do the learning and also to better your systems. Nothing's ever perfect, and if we accept that and we're wanting to learn, we just get a little bit closer. Humility is really big to, one, know that you're not always right, and you have to trust your teams and trust the people that you have around you. But you also have to have the humility that your not perfect system will never be perfect. And if you have that in, then you have a way forward, and it's going to set you up for how you make a decision and how you treat the people around you. Okay.
So in that case, have you had any leaders, like when you think back through your time, perhaps in the Army, have you had anyone that was like, they were a really great leader, or the opposite, or someone that you thought was...
Of course, I've had both.
Yep.
I've had dramatic, worst of the worst.
Okay.
That they were always right and they were the hammer and they just had outlandish ideas and everything was just chaos and it was hard to deal with. Something interesting with that, though, is with that leader, I probably had the best men around. They were able to take that situation, work through it. People are actually incredible. When you give them the opportunity and the drive and a purpose, they will surprise you every time. So even in the worst leadership, I had incredible guys around me, and I think that's what made that system. Okay. At the same time, I've had incredible leaders, and things that I took for them were being able to say the right thing at the right time, to create curiosity and have you figure it out. They were there for us, they were emotionally intelligent, they were absolutely intelligent at what our operations, but they also didn't have a boss around them as to how it was going to work. Okay. And they encouraged us to develop and grow. And that's what I found with the great leaders.
Okay, awesome. And then the second question, I guess, is around, those people who are stuck in their ways, and I'm sure you've encountered those. So what would you do if you came across someone who was, really stuck in their ways and didn't want to make positive health and safety change?
So what I found is a lot of people know what they know. And they get stuck in their ways because that's what they've been taught. It's that institutional knowledge. And institutional knowledge is actually a really great thing until it's not. You have people that know how to do any kind of task, from science to your craft workers. Welders do something very specific for the way they do it because it works for them. Okay. But every welder's beat is a little bit different. And people that get stuck in their ways when they're making decisions for others, that's where it becomes toxic. Whenever we get to that point, it's about educating them and how you choose to educate them. And if they're willing to learn, that's the hard part. And dealing with those types of people, what I found is validating them usually sets a tone for a different. Everybody's always argumentative with you.
True.
However, if you come in and you say, no, I absolutely see your point.
Yeah.
Here's some other information to go along with your point. Maybe it'll change your perspective, maybe it won't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just here to gather you knowledge. Especially in the safety world, we don't really have authority, but we have an inherent responsibility. That responsibility is to provide our leaders and our bosses with the most information possible to make the best decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that is, you do have an actual person, which is very rare. Or, hey, this is our system. This is what I found. These are the outlandish things that we never looked at because we're just not there yet. Mm-hmm. We found this. Maybe we can use it now. Maybe we can use it later. One thing that has worked for me is not trying to point the finger or slam it on the table and say, hey, this has to happen now. Give them that ability to maybe take the humble pie.
Okay, that's great. Third question, which is always an interesting one, is around the inventions. So if you had all the money and all the resources in the world and you had to solve a workplace issue, what would be your invention and why would you create it?
If I could find a monitor, I think that tested individual fatigue.
Okay.
So fatigue is something that I see coming from the military, watching people work to their capacity and then past it.
Okay.
People are incredible. I've said it numerous times, but we're at our best whenever we're not mentally fatigued or physically fatigued, and those things go together. People I worked with used to say, when you got to 33%, that's when you started having the brain triggers to say, shut down, do this, do that.
Okay.
Still have the capacity for, 66%, 66 more. However, you're already at this deficit because your body is telling you to stop. If I could find something that gave leaders the ability to actually see where their mental capacity is, it'll give us the tools to prevent some of these little issues that happen from fatigue, from exhaustion, from, something going on at home, something going on that we never saw. Maybe the guy got a flat tire that morning and he's worried about this and that, and you could get that met. And now you know the resources that are truly at hand versus what you imagine.
Okay, so no holiday, no money printing machine. No,
I don't need it.
That's perfect. And then the last one, which I guess is an interesting one for you, particularly since you've kind of pivoted your career, is around, if you could go back to your younger self, perhaps to, your time before you started in the army and give yourself some words of advice for surviving that period of your life to getting to where you are now, what would you say to yourself?
If we're going to keep it around the safety aspect, I guess what you would tell every young, don't rush in. You're not always right. It's okay to be wrong. Failure has been my greatest success. I have done nothing but fail for 42 years of my life, and that's okay. Because of that, I've learned and I got to do some really cool things. And since I was okay with it and I was curious after I failed, that's what took me to the next level.
Okay.
But it took me a while to learn that. And growing up where I did, I thought I was the world's greatest cowboy, and that's what I was going to be. Now, 20 years later, I don't want to own any farm animal or anything to do with ranching. I like to sleep in the morning.
Okay.
I like to travel.
Yeah.
So slow down before you make your decisions. It'll apply to everything.
Okay.
And don't have an expected outcome. Just let it come.
Okay.
It's okay. If it's good, if it's bad, if it's indifferent,
it's going to be what it is.
And you're going to have more life experiences
that
are validated by what you let happen versus what you try and force.
True. You can't prevent everything from happening. This is correct. So normally at this point in a podcast, I do allow my guests to basically share some insights or learnings they've had either from their career or time at conference, whatever you'd like to talk about. Do you have anything you want to kind of share from?
So I thought it was interesting. I spent my whole career dealing with Army aviation, and it's a very high risk job at all times. And so we were always on pins and needles, and safety is a real big part of that culture. Did we do it right? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't like passing judgment on stuff like that, but in the instances that I was involved in, something I realized just today, actually, in a course I was with at Andrea Baker, was if you show up to the scene and you have the immediate blink reaction that this is what's going on, perhaps maybe you see the injury or you see the guy that committed the infraction and that blame is already set.
Yeah.
Is it our professional responsibility to remove ourselves from that situation until we can get our feelings and our thoughts out of it? Because once we have feelings and thoughts, that changes the bias and it's hard to fight. So I think that's one of the things that I've learned just kind of in this week. A bunch of things said, and there were so many great people here. And safety is definitely a different view for me.
Yeah.
I am new to this profession, but that was probably my greatest takeaway. What responsibilities do I have? Safety, to be the best safety provider I can. Yeah, it was kind of humbling.
Oh, that's really great. So thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Enjoy your travels home. Awesome. Well, there you have it. That was my chat with the awesome Ken Madson. While I have mentioned that Ken was intense, I should point out he did really have a fantastic sense of humour as well. So it wasn't all seriousness. He did start a running joke with me, as on the first few nights in the States I asked for a lemonade and learned that the US version of a lemonade is just lemon juice with water. When I explained to Ken what I was really asking for, he was polite enough to explain to me that I was actually asking for a lemon soda, like a Sprite, not lemonade. From that moment on, before I could even grab myself a drink at any mealtime, a lemon and citrus flavoured can of soda would always be in front of me on the table wherever I sat down. So yes, he genuinely is an interesting guy with some really different experiences and a great perspective on things. I hope that my chat with Ken was as great for you as it was for me. Until next time, stay safe.